whilst I was reading Mehdi Hassan's book on how to win every argument, and for anyone who knows me, the topic of this book is very dear to my heart. Anyway, whilst I was reading that book, I was introduced to the 40-70 rule for decision making. Now, I'd never heard of it before, to be fair. However, I think I've probably been using it for years unconsciously, but since I've actually read the book, I've now started using it consciously, and it's been a bit of a game changer in terms of allowing me to push forward and make decisions even more effectively than I thought I was previously. So I don't know whether you've heard of the late Colin Powell. If you haven't, then he was the US Secretary of State under George W. Bush, and he had what was described as the 40-70 rule of making decisions. And I think it's a really great rule for all businesses, and specifically fast-moving environments like exports, which I work in, because what he opined was that you need between 40 and 70% of the relevant information to make a decision. Welcome to the Hands-On Business Podcast. Where else are you going to come to get tips, tricks, and advice on growing your business? Now, as you know, what people really tend to love about this podcast is that it is a place where you can hear real business leaders discussing systems, methodologies, and strategies that they've actually used to help them catapult growth in their own businesses. So I'm your podcast host, Hakeem Adebiyi, and I've grown several small businesses to multi-million-pound enterprises, and I noticed that there wasn't really a place that focused on where I was, i.e. growing a small business. All of the content that seemed to be out there was about big business and often just lots of theory and no practical implementable advice, which is exactly why I set up this podcast. And today is going to be one of my Business Bite sessions, which is, as you probably already know, me musing on a specific topic for business that has piqued my interest. So really excited to have you here. Happy listening. So I've been wrapping up the recording of my online course this week, which is for healthcare export businesses. And one of the modules is on mindset and the importance of having the right mindset traits to succeed in the export business. But these traits are required in any business to be successful. So I decided that I would do a podcast on it. So I know a lot of people think, oh God, here we go, mindset again. But the reason why it's so important is because mindset leads to attitude. Attitude leads to action, and action leads to success. And I've been in business for over 30 years, and my experience has allowed me to identify and model 5 key traits, which I think are the essential if you want to be successful in business. And the first one of those is having a global mindset, i.e. understanding that the world is a very big place and you can't apply a one-size-fits-all strategy to your business, especially if you want that business to expand. Number 2, you need to have an innovative mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset, which they talk about these days. You need not just to be open to new ideas, but you actively need to seek them out. Number 3 is decisiveness. Indecision completely cripples businesses, and it's been proven that the best businesses are the ones that make decisions. They may not always get every decision that they make right, but they're always moving forward. And if they make the wrong decision, then, and that's obviously going to happen, you're not always going to make the right decisions, then they use the 4th mindset trait, which is resilience and adaptability. And I think that speaks for itself. And then the 5th mindset trait is collaboration. Absolutely no leader should operate in isolation, especially in an interdependent and interconnected field like healthcare export that I work in, but the same in any other business. A collaborative spirit involving stakeholders at every level and embracing teamwork across borders, cultures is essential to succeed in my business, but just teamwork and working with stakeholders is critical to succeed in any business that you may be working in. So whilst all of those mindset traits are critical for success, which is obviously why I've done a full module on this in the course, and I've put in real case studies to demonstrate the importance of each one, then I decided to pick on just one for this episode because I believe it's the benchmark of all good leaders and also all great businesses. And the one I want to talk about now is decisiveness. And decisiveness, so when I'm talking about decisiveness, what I'm talking about is the ability to make decisions swiftly and effectively, even under pressure. Because I think that's crucial for leaders and businesses. And I don't just think it, I've seen it and I've modeled it over time. Simply put, procrastination is the enemy of progress and success. Decisiveness is the opposite of that. Now, as you know, I talk about vision a lot, and I talk about the importance of vision and the importance that vision plays in driving successful businesses. Decisiveness and vision actually go hand in hand, because having a vision will allow you to make decisions based on exactly what you're trying to achieve overall, which is the vision. So decision making, as I said, involves weighing various factors. You're considering the impacts, and then you're committing to a course of action without any undue delay. It's about making them quickly. And whilst I was reading Mehdi Hassan's book on how to win every argument, for anyone who knows me, the topic of this book is very dear to my heart. Anyway, whilst I was reading that book, I was introduced to the 40-70 rule for decision making. Now, I'd never heard of it before, to be fair. However, I think I've probably been using it for years unconsciously, but since I've actually read the book, I've now started using it consciously, and it's been a bit of a game changer in terms of allowing me to push forward and make decisions even more effectively than I thought I was previously. So I don't know whether you've heard of the late Colin Powell. If you haven't, then he was the US Secretary of State under George W. Bush, and he had what was described as the 40-70 rule of making decisions. And I think it's a really great rule for all businesses, and specifically fast-moving environments like exports, which I work in, because what he opined was that you need between 40 and 70% of the relevant information to make a decision. So let me just break that down a bit more clearly. So he would strive not to make any decision with less than 40% of the information needed. But he ultimately would make the decision when he had at most 70% of the information. So he wouldn't start waiting for 75%, 80%, or even 100%. Once he got to 70%, then he would make that decision. So basically, the sweet spot was between 40 and 70% of the information. And what this means is that you don't procrastinate, but also you don't rush into things either, because you're at least gathering some of the information. So what I started thinking about when I was reading it is that you also therefore need to be able to trust your intuition and experience, because you're not ever going to have all of the information before you make a decision. And when I started to really think about it, if you've been in business as long as I have, then isn't that intuition or the gut instinct that we talk about, isn't that data? Because it's based on my experience, which is effectively stats from situations that I've been in, the statistics from situations I've been in. And the data or the information or the statistics that we're always seeking, generally, when we try to make decisions, are just an amalgamation of experience and statistics and data from elsewhere, or trusted sources, as we call them. So a short one today, really just to give you some insight into decision making, and just what jumped into my mind when having read Mehdi Hassan's book and actually going through decision making and going through the modules on mindset that I was going through. But I really wanted to share it with you because I thought it was a great way to look at decision making. I hope you find it useful, and message me on LinkedIn to let me know your thoughts. And if you want to pick up the show notes, head over to the salesaccelerationformula.com/podcast-show-notes, and you'll be able to subscribe to our mailing list and get show notes for every single episode. And as always, subscribe, like, and share with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who you think may be interested. But most of all, keep the feedback coming so that we can continue to improve and give you more of what you like. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and as I always do, keep listening and keep growing.